You said that you've got 3 boys and 1 daughter. Your oldest son is a natural leader. He's the oldest, not surprised. But that all your boys are going to have to be leaders. What did you mean? And how would you train them to be leaders?
Yeah, I just think of the God-given beauty of marriage and matrimony and that relationship. And when done right, like the man is meant to be the leader.
Yes.
And I think that in society, with the current culture, especially in America, a lot of that's been flipped upside down and disregarded, and it's not serving society in my opinion.
How is that working, flipping that upside down?
Like, just the woman is maybe she's not overtly leading the household, but maybe she's manipulating the household, or maybe she's living in the same household but doing her own thing, and it's just kind of like 2 separate lives together. But like she's doing her own thing and not really necessarily following a lead. Or maybe it's simply that the husband isn't leading and he's being passive.
Yes.
And that is affecting the household in ways that maybe the husband and wife don't really realize. And it's harmful and it doesn't serve the household. And it's hard to recognize it at first, but at some point it will backfire. And I think that's partially why there's so many broken marriages now. But there's so much we could unpack there, right? There's so much to society that is broken and lacking wholeness. And, maybe the husband isn't being faithful, or maybe the wife is being reacting in a way that's pushing him away. And there's just so much to unpack. I'm not like a marriage expert, and I don't know.
I think you've identified the big ones, though.
Yeah.
I think actually, it sounds like you are a marriage expert because you've just described the many varieties of dysfunction in a household. And the passive husband is a much more common thing than it used to be.
Yeah, and it's hard because a lot of like what we know is what we've been taught or what we've learn from our own parents. And so you could hardly blame the husband for being that way. They maybe never had someone come alongside of them and truly show them the way in a healthy way. Or simply having conversations that are intentional around this area. Like, hey, like these are things you're going to need to do as like the leader of your household. Like just simple conversations that are never held.
If you were to give that advice to one of your boys, what would you say?
Oh, I mean, from a mother's perspective, it's just knowing that like, hey, like you need to provide for your wife mentally, emotionally, and physically. And what that looks like is this, and this. And if she's reacting in certain ways, it's likely that you're not providing in one of those key points. And so being willing to problem solve as like a husband, and, to be honest, like it's because I've felt this in my own marriage and having to work through that with my husband. And rather than like letting like the darkness tear us apart and pull us apart, like our faith has grown us closer. We've had to work through some of our issues.
Yes.
And just seeing him grow as the leader of our household has been really beautiful. And I'm just so grateful. But I've felt like the before and after.
So are you saying maybe make it more general? So
yeah, I definitely make it more general.
But you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Do you think that a woman should explicitly encourage her husband to be a better leader?
I think, yes, for sure we should be encouraging. Like that is our role, is to be encouraging and cheer on and support and, be supportive. But also to allow that to happen. And sometimes you have to let go of things too. But I also there's a lot of conversation that comes with that and like talking about it and working through it. And it's hard because this is such like a deep issue.
But it's the core issue.
Yeah. And
if a husband and wife can't get along, then how does society continue, actually?
No, for sure. And that's why I talked, like when I opened up this little can of worms, I was like, talking about it from the perspective of like society. Why is there so much brokenness in society?
Yes.
We've lost our problem solving abilities. And instead of like, you know, having those deep, meaningful conversations that are essential over time, not having those conversations, then they just break apart.
Okay, so let's be specific. You've got 4 kids. I have 4 kids, so I know
Yeah.
I know what it's like to have, you know, 9 through 1. And what it really is just kind of chaotic. There's just a lot going on, a lot of people with immediate needs that must be met, a lot of filth that must be cleaned, et cetera, a lot of noise. Hard to have conversations with your spouse under those circumstances you're living in. So how do you have a conversation like that's that heavy and that important when you've got all these other demands?
Yeah, it's super hard. And that's why like I always bring up my health journey. It's not like I went super deep in on that, but realizing that I needed the energy, you know, throughout the whole day, not half of the whole day until I make it to my bed at bedtime.
Yeah.
I need the energy to serve my family well. And so I'm very passionate about health because I recognize that like the common meme is like, but first coffee, but first like I need some me time to like survive this chaos. But we're really not as resilient as we should be because our health isn't being supported in the way that it needs to be the best mother, to be the best wife, to be the best daughter in life. And so first supporting yourself so that you can overcome the hardship that comes your way. And so for me, like, you know, I'm not watching Netflix or TV or anything at bedtime. I'm going to bed or I'm having a conversation with my husband. So it's like the relationship and my health first before any entertainment. And trying
Did you feel like, just to pause on this for a second, because I think it's a big thing, particularly for busy people with little kids, it's like, all right, the second they go to bed, I'm just going to zone out in my own world with Netflix or whatever. Why is that bad?
Well, you know.
Why did you stop doing it?
I stopped because I felt like I needed to stop for my own like survival.
Really?
Like, you know, I do try to find, you know, a 20, 30 minute, sometimes hour and a half window for myself in the day, which that looks like surfing or getting a little movement or going on a walk or laying in my bed praying or doing something just by myself for a quick minute. But there's like so much time that is wasted, whether it's scrolling on social media or watching TV. It's very consumeristic. And I want to create and I want to build and make beautiful. And to me, consuming doesn't allow for that as much. You know, when I'm consuming, I'm essentially not creating. And so
I knew it would be worth asking you that question because that's a wonderful answer. When I'm consuming, I'm not creating.
Yes. And so for me, you know, we always want to justify our actions. Every now and then I like to sit down and watch alone. And it's usually with my husband and sometimes with my children. Like that's the one TV show we watched lately in the last year. But otherwise, I'm not consuming. And, you know, I am on social media, but I try to like keep tabs on that and not let it like overtake my life. Typically I have it on a separate device. Lately I haven't because I broke my old device phone. But I had to move it off my main phone device because I was like needed to control that time, so to say, spent like not randomly scrolling when I didn't necessarily want to, you know, kind of putting like some boundaries there. Because it became like a easy reflex to like kill time and space. And so I moved it to a separate device and that was a game changer for me. Really? I know not everyone can just have a separate extra device, but if you can, and if it is stealing that much of your time, then maybe it's worth investing that extra little chunk if you aren't willing to give it up.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.